So you really took over your training.
I actually put up with him for like. I was like, okay, I'll put up
Like
with
30
him.
years.
Hey, let me tell you something. I
No, but
like
like, no, but
personally.
like y'all, like okay, y'all never disrespected me, but like he would say stuff, and I'd be like, okay, he's just like an asshole, and I just put up with it. Then he started treating my husband, or actually every boyfriend I had, he got in a fight with him. So then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this guy, I'm married and I have kids, like, don't be an asshole to him, and he was, and like we would wrestle for him really cheap, like as cheap as y'all did when you came all the way from fucking New York. And like he'd be like, he'd be mean to him, and he would have a great show. And like I would wrestle his girlfriend, and like as I was walking away, he's like, "Why don't you learn to work?"
But
And
he's
like,
doing
You?
the trainer.
you're my trainer, and I would just like ignore him, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, you know what? We came all the way from clean. I'm not gonna let you treat me like this anymore. Like you're a pig. I'm just done with him. Like,
So
and I'm
you no, but you like I never had a problem with Rudy, and I didn't know none of this until I heard you speak out about it, and I was like, what the fuck?
yeah. Like at
But
Ring of Honor when we were in Boston, he
yeah,
came up to me like y'all were there too.
yeah.
And it was like Paul, they all came up, and that's when I moved with Steve. And Rudy's like, "Come here," and I'm like, "What?" And I didn't think anything of it. And he goes, "Come here," and he like pulled me over, and he went like that, and I went, "Man!" I like laughed in his face, but I'm like, "Ew!" Like, what if I was intimidated by him? Like, which I found a lot of girls were like, "Oh, I better do what they say," or like, I actually talked to one girl that's like, I heard a girl say, "Oh, this guy made me," can I say dick? Made me
Yeah.
suck his dick like numerous times. I'm like, okay, if someone's gonna make me suck their dick, first off, it's gonna get cut off. Like, there's not no way I'm gonna do it like 6, 7 times. Like, no, like, and I felt bad for him. And then like he was like that. I'm like, ew, like he was trying to like, ew, ugh. Like
And,
I'm
and,
sure he would have done it. Like, I've
and
heard,
like people that I know through my work now, like my shoot job, wanted to train to be a wrestler and went to the TWA where Rudy, when this is when Rudy was in charge of the TWA,
Yeah.
and he was just a creep from the get go,
yeah, like,
and she gave up that dream right away.
yeah,
Wow.
like he was, yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons why speaking out meant so much to me. That and because my wife's fucking been through it for how many years
Well,
now,
and
my daughter wants to wrestle.
And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. But then like Rudy and all them, they're like, okay, I'm not gonna. I'll say it right here. Me and my husband are freaks, but we're both of age, and we both like we do that. And Rudy's like, oh well, I have a dick pic of you because like he used to be a stripper. Well, if you were on his Instagram or his Snapchat, you're gonna have a picture of his thong. Well, one of the girls has a picture of it and showed Rudy, and she's like, well, y'all do the same stuff. We will hit on people of age. They're not our students. We don't make them say we're going to ruin your career if you don't sleep with us. We do it with adults.
Yeah,
you know?
I
So
don't
quit-
even like
I quit
females
doing,
in
I quit
wrestling
doing
anymore.
it. I quit like speaking out because they're throwing that shit in my face, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to help girls, but if they're going to bring up what I do, what we do together, I don't
With
cheat.
consensual adults.
Yeah, we do it. We're freaks. We admit it. But he's doing it behind his girl's back and stuff. And I'm like, okay, it's like,
And he's using his position.
I'll teach my daughter just to stab people like I do and laugh in people's faces like I did to Rudy.
All right, don't say that again. I'm gonna have the cops call my mom in Virginia.
Instead of like fucking helping people, I'm just gonna worry about my kid, you know? Like, why are you bringing stuff to my face and what I do? I know what I do. My husband knows what I do. We both do it together. Like, but never mind. I'm not gonna help
You how long were you with Rudy before you decided to cut ties with him?
just recently, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, about 2.
So
Because
all
I
that
know-
from the time you started training to 2 years ago.
He got out of the army, and I'm like, hey, maybe he'll see like he had a daughter, and like she would say
She would call him Rudy.
She
She wouldn't
Rudy.
even call him Dad.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe he'll move here. I'm like, maybe he'll see like my husband, and maybe he'll change because I know he didn't have a good dad, you know,
Who,
and
Rudy?
I didn't have a good. Yeah, we both didn't have good dads, and like we might fight, and I'm like, oh well, I'm Mexican. I could have 20 kids by now. That we have kids, we're staying together no matter what.
Right.
We're gonna fucking stay together. So I figured, like, hey, maybe Rudy will see how he's sweet and hugs our kid. Like we hug our kids all the time. We love them. Like they're not.
Our kids go to all of our shows.
They go behind. They go backstage. They fucking.
That was one of my greatest memories
And
growing up.
You know what pissed me off too is when the whole speaking out thing came. They're like, they brought our kids into it. They'd be like, oh, well, their kids would go to the shows and they're backstage with adults. And I'm like, whoa,
I'd
My
rather
kids-
them be backstage in a locker room
It's not like they're
with friends and peers and where I can see
they wanna
them
do it
than
one
a
day.
crowd full of marks that I don't know who they are.
There's Rudy boys
Yeah.
out there fucking picking up on little girls. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm sitting there fucking watching everybody like in the old
Yeah, and
days
it's
doing
not like-
cocaine, fucking with their dicks hanging out. My kids are sitting there watching it. You know what I mean?
And it's not like my kids sitting there staring at somebody getting
Naked man,
undressed.
yeah,
you
it's-
know.
But yeah,
No.
it's not like that. And so that's why I'm like, you know what? Just forget it. I'm not going to do this
Yeah.
no more. Keep my family out of it. You're going to be like that, then fine. I'm not
Like,
going to help anybody
You hear
anymore.
wrestling's a
Y'all
brotherhood.
just be
It's
careful
a family.
and watch your girls and do whatever. You know, I'm just like, okay, I'm done with it. Y'all don't bring my freakiness into it. That's
So
how
you said he had problems with like your other boyfriends. Like he tried to what start shit with them.
Well, now I know why. I'm like, because he liked me. Because he'd be like, "Oh, I love you," and he would like, I'm like, "Oh, he's just joking. He loves me." And I'm like, "Ew, he really did." Like,
But what I
Like,
mean, what
I
did you
showed
say?
him
He said?
messages. Okay, like I showed him messages after, like finally, I was like, "Okay, I'm done." Like,
Like-
I had Facebook messages. Like I popped a boob, right?
Yeah, she
And one
popped
of my
the boob wrestling.
But I wouldn't tell him because we at the time that was the only place we wrestled for in San Antonio was Rudy.
Yeah.
He lived in Killeen. He's like, "Oh, hey, how's your tit? Your boob? Your," and
How's
that's
your
how he would
jugs?
talk to me. How's your jugs? How's your tits? Like that's how he would talk
And
to me.
this is all while he's with the girl that he's married
And
to.
I
now.
wouldn't tell him. It would bother me, and I'm just like, "Oh, that's just how."
And,
Rudy
and
is.
she would leave it in for so long
Yeah,
until the whole
and then-
speaking out thing came.
And then he's like, "That's not right. Why would you let him
No.
talk to you like that?" And I'm like,
Right.
"You know what? It's not fucking right. I wouldn't want fucking someone talking to my daughter like that because I didn't realize." Like I was just like, "Oh, I'll play it off. That's just how he is. That's how guys are. That's how I know some guys are, and I won't be alone with guys like that."